Welcome to Team Call. Today is Monday, November 12th. November's halfway over. Cannot believe it. We have just a few announcements for tonight. Nothing that is super crazy new or anything that we haven't heard before. I do want to encourage everybody, if you have not listened to the National Wake Up Call from this morning, do so. I thought that the speaker this morning had just a really great kind of message and story as to how her business has kind of shifted and changed over the course of her time as a coach. And so I just thought it was a really good story to listen to. So I want to encourage you all to do that. If you haven't done so already, you can do so through the podcast, or you can just go to the Team Beachbody 411 Facebook page and listen to that back, the live video there. But the three announcements that we have for tonight are the fact that it is No Excuse November. So that's FAQ 4534. Which basically is the $20 off all challenge and completion packs that are $150 or more all month long. If you purchase a challenge pack this month and you start a monthly nutritional subscription, you get exclusive early access to the A Little More Obsessed workouts that released several weeks back, the 6 new workouts with Autumn Calabrese, before it officially shows up in the member library in January. So that is No Excuse November. I want to encourage you all to use that hashtag and that kind of theme to promote your upcoming challenge groups or the challenge groups that you're running now, and just kind of utilize that to your advantage, the kind of theme of the month. Also, Step It Up in November, FAQ 8220. So you can reserve your Transform 20 step while supplies last. All you have to do is get one Success Club point this month. So November 1st to November 30th. Just get one Success Club point to guarantee your step. If you get that Success Club point and then you purchase any Transform 20 product offer that includes a step during the first week of the launch, which is December 4th through December 11th, you can guarantee, you can reserve your spot for one of those steps. And we will be talking about the launch of Transform 20 as we kind of get a little more information about it, kind of, you know, how we're going to be doing some sneak peek groups, when challenge packs go on sale and all that fun stuff. So stay tuned for that in our team page. And then the last announcement that I have is that today is the final day of the apparel flash sale. So be sure that you go over to the Team Beachbody store. You can get 30% off on select apparel. So that is all the announcements that I have for tonight. Super pumped about tonight's call because it is going to be led by the amazing, incredible Feryl York, who is a leader on our team. She is going to be talking about the power of I am, which is kind of the theme of the coach test group that Chris Downing is running. And I love watching Feryl's Instagram stories every day because she always shares kind of her biggest takeaway either from her personal development or from that coach test group. And it's just really inspiring kind of how she's able to take what she's learning from the power of I am and apply it not only to her business, her challenge groups, and with her coaches and customers, but just in everyday life. And so I just, we were kind of talking a couple weeks ago, and she mentioned wanting to kind of share some of her takeaways about this. And so I thought it was just totally applicable to our team, regardless of where you're at in your business. And I'm super excited to hear her share. She always speaks straight from the heart and straight to mine and straight to everybody's that she's speaking to. So I'm really excited for her message tonight and just kind of hear what some of her takeaways are. So I am going to mute myself and pass it over to Feryl, and she will take it away.
You are so kind. Thank you for that awesome introduction, you guys. It's so great to see each and every one of you this evening. And Beth, I appreciate the opportunity. We had a little chit chat about the power of I am a couple of weeks ago, and I just have been gaining so much insight from a couple of different things. And one of them happens to be, as Beth mentioned, the coach test group. And a lot of what Chris Downing is doing in our coach test group definitely mirrors what he does for his own personal development group that he has, which is called the Power of I Am. And it's so similar, but yet I would say the amount of depth that he goes into with this other specific Power of I Am personal development group is just a little bit deeper, if you will. So for those of you that have not heard of that before, he has a group that he runs, and it's 9 weeks. And so I'm actually right in the middle of it. And so hopefully by the end and the conclusion of this whole 9 weeks, maybe I'll have even more information and more insights that I've been able to gain. And I'm always happy to share those along the way way as well. So like I said, I'm right in the middle of it. And basically the format of it, if you're ever interested in jumping in one of these groups with him, it's something that he does separate of Beachbody, but every single coach or every single person that I've been able to see that is in this session appears to be as if they are somehow connected to Beachbody, whether they're a coach or whether they're a customer, or there's actually a couple of spouses of coaches that are in the group. So it's a really cool, eclectic group of individuals that are super like-minded. And so the takeaway points are, like I said, so much like what he is sharing with us in our test group. But here's kind of the breakdown. One night a week, he talks about personal development and growth and how to develop yourself to be the best version of you. And then the second time that you meet that week, then he helps you apply that thought process and those same ideas to your business as far as Beachbody business and coaching goes. And then I feel like, honestly, I've been able to take so much of it and apply it to what I do in the physical therapy world with my students, just with life in general. So if it's something you're ever interested in, I would highly, highly recommend it. If you have more questions, feel free to reach out to me and I'll give you a little bit more of the nitty-gritty details if you have questions about that. But for starting this evening, a couple things. I have a couple notes over here to my right. So if you see me look over to my right, you know why. I really wanted to break down so far the 3 big takeaways that I have felt thus far. And it's very, very profound. I started this group out thinking that it would just be interesting to learn a little bit more about myself and just what that means to apply to the people that are in my life, not only our challengers and our customers, but to you ladies, to the people that are on my specific team and our team together, my family. And it has been so much of a mind shift. So not to be a play on words with his program with Shift Shop, but it really has been such a mind shift for me. And so I'm just going to list out the 3 things and then we'll get into them just a little bit deeper. The first is really thinking about developing and understanding your pride versus your purpose. Number 2 is, okay, this purpose, how do I get there? What does it look like? How do I become that? What if I don't know my purpose? Those sorts of thought processes and questions. And then last but not least, how do you actually make that shift? So let's go back. Number 1, pride versus purpose. So I want to give you a little bit of a backstory, but on the same token, if you ever decide to jump into this program, I don't want to take too much of it away from your experience as well. But I had no idea that Chris has quite an interesting background. I loved him anyway as a trainer. He speaks to my soul. He reminds me of like the male version of Autumn to a certain extent. I always feel like I gain something physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually whenever I do one of his workouts. But now I feel like I have just even more of an appreciation for him. He actually was in a really abusive relationship whenever he was growing up with his mother. His mother was addicted to substances. He didn't know his father. His grandmother raised him for a period of time and then she suddenly passed. Just a lot of different things that were really difficult for him in his formative years. Spent some time incarcerated, just things like that he's really had to work through, which I had no idea, which to be honest, I thought was honestly kind of even cooler. The fact that he has had all these things and trials and tribulations. We all have something, right? But he really has chosen to rise above and use those experiences to try to create and live his purpose. So when we're talking about the pride versus purpose, to me, and this is just my personal takeaway, to me, it almost reminds me of the cartoon that you would see where you're in the middle and you've got the devil on one side and the angel on the other, right? So for me, whenever I think about how he's described this, my pride is kind of that negative or sometimes that not so great behavior that I'm looking at or I'm seeing in myself. And where does that come from? To me, when I think about it, it really comes from fear. So that fear of not living up to the expectations that I create for myself, or the fear of not living up to what someone else's expectations are of me. Or if I think about my job as a Beachbody coach, my fear of not helping challengers succeed and get out of our programs what I've gotten out of our programs, or my fear to dream really big. So when I think about my pride, oftentimes I'm driven by those sorts of fears. And what happens is I can't live and be my best self. My gifts, just like your gifts, cannot come out fully whenever we're acting out in a place of fear. So to me, that's kind of what I've gained so far, is like that's that little devil that's on the shoulder right here that says, ooh, you know, when you were a little girl, your grandmother told you that you really should only be wearing a one-piece swimsuit because, you know, big girls, they don't wear bikinis. Or the fear of, ooh, you know what, maybe you don't want to set your goal too high because what if you don't make it? What happens if you don't hit that goal? That's kind of what that feels like to me whenever I think about that. Then my purpose is like my superhero, that inner being that just feels so peaceful, so passionate, and allows me to be what I feel is the best version of me. And so the really cool thing is, guys, each and every one of you has that same pride and that same purpose. And so one thing I would love for you to do tonight, over the next, couple of days, next couple of weeks, whatever the case may be, take some time and sit down and think about, what are those things? What are those prideful things that are maybe making you act out of fear? Or maybe they just feel like they're these anchors. Chris uses that word in our test group a lot, anchors. They're these anchors that are just holding us back. And sometimes we don't necessarily even recognize what they are until we literally sit down and start thinking about, okay, what is it that happened in my life over my formative years, in the last couple of years? What are maybe my own limiting factors I put on myself? And just take some time to think about what they might be. And then take some time also to think about when I feel like I am in my best version of myself. Like you are just rocking your workouts. You're at like Success Club 10 and it's only halfway through the month. I mean, you're just hitting all of your goals. You've started your Christmas shopping, right? Everything is just gelling and you just feel like, I got this. That's your purpose. That's your superhero. That's the person that acts out of love and out of gratitude and out of peace. That's whenever the best version of you comes out. And that's whenever everything comes to fruition. And I was just about to say that's whenever wealth comes to fruition, but I don't mean just financial wealth. I mean like wealth in your heart, wealth in your spirit, wealth in your family, and of course, wealth in your business. So spend some time thinking about what maybe those things are, because I promise you, once you shed a little bit of light to whatever it is that might be acting as your pride, or as Chris would say, acting as an anchor, until you recognize that and then decide to, I'm going to use Daniel Natoni's thought process, until you decide to bless and release that, it's always going to be there to a certain extent. So let's say you're working on trying to get past whatever those anchors are or that pride is. Until you put pen to paper, put thought process through, and allow yourself to literally bless and release them, and then bless and release your own self for that as well, you really aren't ever going to be able to fully live that superhero or fully have that entire purpose. So I would love to have you guys do that. And if you think, oh gosh, that's going to be so challenging or that's going to be so easy, either way, just take as much time as you need to try to start putting a little bit of light to that. It is incredibly empowering to be able to do that. And then to be able to recognize this. This is the biggest takeaway from Pride and Purpose that I want you to just drive home tonight. I can leave you with one thing. I want you to remember that devil and that angel, that pride and that purpose. What is right in the center? You are right in the middle. Guess what that means? Girl, you have all the power. You have got it all. Because I'm here to tell you, whichever one you decide to feed the most is the one that is going to flourish. So once you recognize, that's why I want you to take some time to think about some of those things that might be over here on that pride side. Because ladies, as soon as I started to figure out some of those things, I didn't realize that those statements from my grandmother really bothered me as much as they did, and really drove me as much as they've driven me to be fearful of certain things as far as making decisions when it comes to my own health and wellness, until I took a second to really, really think about them. And then I can start to recognize, guess what? I'm in the middle. I don't have to feed that. I get to feed this. I get to feed my superhero. And that's whenever I get to be the best version of myself. And that's whenever you get to unleash all of the amazing gifts and talents that are already housed within you. Whenever you live that purpose, that is whenever all of those gifts just come bubbling out. That is whenever all those gifts are there for you to share with your challengers, with your family, with us, our family here in our coaching business, and just with the world. How cool is that? So once you've had that time to figure that out and you recognize that you're in the driver's seat, then let's start talking about, how do I feed this purpose? How do I find my purpose? What does it look like? So that brings me to point number 2. How do I even get there? And to be honest with you, ladies, I'm not so sure that I'm totally there yet. I believe that we definitely evolve and continue to become the best versions of ourselves, because as we grow and we recognize that difference between that pride and that purpose, then we're allowed to see and enjoy that journey. And those journeys also have lessons for us to learn along the way that continue to help us grow, right? But I would say, for the time being, as far as purpose goes, one of the best ways for you to start thinking about that is, when do I just really feel at peace? When do I feel like I just really am 100% enjoying, I'm present, things just feel like they're natural, almost like, really, this was a job, or this was an activity that was supposed to be challenging, that came so easy to me. When you feel that way, that is a vision into what your purpose is. So how do we feed that purpose? Affirmations, all the way. Personal development, all the way. So again, the reason I like to think about that as the devil and the angel is because I know that whenever I might have some negativity, or I feel some negativity, or maybe there's some thoughts that are brewing in my mind, I can recognize that right away and literally just look over it and say, no, excuse me, you're not serving me anymore. I'm going to have to ask you to kindly not talk to me anymore. And then come over here and literally say, you know what? You are passionate. You are blessed. You are faithful. You are spiritual. You are right. And the list just goes on and on. Now, I try to make sure that I don't do that in public, because that really starts to turn some heads. Whenever I'm looking over this way and I'm having a conversation, and I look over this way and I have a conversation, people kind of look at me funny when I do that. So my recommendation is, maybe make sure that you do that in the privacy of your own home, right? But no, in all reality, those affirmations that you speak to yourself, that inner dialogue, we all know how important that is. And I really, really strongly believe that negative thoughts, negative words, negative environments, and so on, are honestly spiritual and just neglect. They're like spiritual suicide almost. And so if you can think about the flip side of that, whenever you tell yourself all the things that you are, or that you want to be, or that you're becoming, that speaks life and nutrients and health and wellness into your brain, into your heart, into your soul, into your being. And we all know that what we think, we emotionally start to tell ourselves. Those things then start to come out of our mouth. And then those things that we speak, they actually end up coming to pass as far as what actually happens. So, I really don't think that we give ourselves enough of those positive affirmations and enough food for thought, if you will, to the environment that we surround ourselves with. So start thinking about that piece of the puzzle, and then that way you can continue to develop and feed your purpose. And just like anything else, the more and more you feed it, the more and more it's going to grow, and the more and more it will develop. One thing I love to think about is our mindset is really just like any other muscle that we have in our body. And I feel like we all understand so well the fact that we aren't going to develop strength and endurance and cardiovascular fitness and all of those things just by literally pressing play one time, boom, we're done. And now we have developed the muscle that we're looking for, the cardiovascular fitness that we're looking for, right? We know that doesn't happen that way. But suddenly, whenever it's something that is more internal and inside of us, we think that we should have it all figured out. And that literally by reading one book or by telling ourselves one time that we should be automatically the person that we are intended to be is just not fair. And it just doesn't happen that way. So your mindset and your affirmations and your purpose is just like any other muscle in your body that you're trying to grow and develop. It takes time. It takes consistency. It takes really, really strong work ethic. And so if we can pour into that side of ourselves, then imagine what we can do to pour into others. I think it would just be amazing to be able to see all the love, all of the positivity, and all of the really just cool things that can come together whenever we're all living in our greatest purpose, or we're all unleashing all of our superpowers as the superhero that we were intended to be. So last but not least, making that shift. And this is kind of the piece of the program that I'm in right now. And so I'm going to speak to what I've learned thus far. Making the shift I kind of alluded to already is thinking when we're talking about emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. So just like the heart has 4 chambers, that part of our being has 4 chambers as well. And so each one of them is interdependent upon the other, and one cannot succeed without the other. So it's so important for us to continue to feed our mental self. It's so important to feed our spiritual self, whatever that looks like to you. Maybe that's meditation. Maybe that is some sort of devotion, whatever that looks like for you. When we're talking about our emotional health, so important to make sure that we're surrounding ourselves with people just like you, like-minded individuals that really help develop us into the people that we're intended to be. That support and that growth is so important. And then of course, physically, it's super important for us to make sure we're getting enough rest, we're eating appropriately, we're exercising. I mean, I'm talking to a group of amazing Beachbody coaches. I don't need to talk to you about that piece of the puzzle, right? But I think remembering that those 4 things are so critical to our purpose, and remembering that they're just like 4 chambers of the heart, that just was so eye-opening to me, because it just makes perfect sense that we just can't function with our whole self if our entire heart isn't functioning the way that it's supposed to. Just like we can't live to our fullest capacity as to who we're intended to be if we don't have all 4 of those pieces in check. So when I sat back and I spent some time thinking about that process and just everything as a whole, this is really what it reminded me of. So it reminded me of the growth mechanism that we had talked about from a physical standpoint. But it also really reminded me, my dad is a farmer. So let me just kind of preface this with that. So I grew up with, farming, farm girl roots. But it really reminded me of my dad and what he does as a farmer. And I've always found what he does so inspiring for a variety of reasons. But for one of the main reasons is I feel like he just has so much faith. And he has so much trust in the process. And he has such a way to just literally know that he is doing the best job he possibly can. He controls the controllables, and he leaves the rest to what the universe believes is best. And so when I think about this, it just reminds me of that so much. Think about, so my dad, if he's in farming season, he does not just go and take like this amazing seed that has just been purchased. He doesn't just go and like chuck it, right? He doesn't just go throw it whatever and he's like, whatever, wherever it lands, no big deal. He would never do that, right? But instead, he makes sure that before he even has the seed ready to be put in the soil, he has taken time to make sure with care, with concern, with passion, and with love that soil is ready to accept that seed. I mean, he has dotted all I's, crossed all T's, and made sure that that soil is ready and it's hardy and it's ready to accept the challenge of allowing the seed to be planted, right? So then gets the seed, and it's not just a mediocre seed. He does his research. He makes sure it's the right seed for where he belongs and in his type of soil and where he lives, knowing that that seed isn't necessarily any better or worse than any other seed. It's just the right seed for his soil. Takes his time, very methodically plants it, makes sure that then he doesn't, again, just be like, whatever happens, happens. No, not at all. He definitely takes the time to make sure that he is watering it. He's making sure that it has as much environmental control as possible to create as best possible of an opportunity for that seed to start to do what? Grow, expand, lay really solid roots, great foundational roots. And then there's definitely some expansion and there's some pressure, right? The ground is pressing down a bit. The soil and the seed, it's trying to come up and through, and it's not easy. It takes some hard work and dedication. And he sits at this point knowing that he has done what he can do. And he trusts the process. He trusts and he knows that he has put every effort forth possible. And he waits, and he waits, and he waits. And lo and behold, what starts to happen, right? So just like us, we have to make sure that we definitely cultivate ourselves and that we are ready to absorb whatever is planted inside of us so that we can then take that time to continue to nourish and try to provide an environment that's healthy and well for whatever that perfect seed is for us. Again, knowing that it's not the same for everyone, but knowing it's the right one for us, just like yours is the right one for you. And then we have to grant ourselves the time, trust the process, enjoy the journey, and know that it takes time. And it takes some difficulty and some hardships to come along for us to develop our roots and our foundation. But when we do, watch out. Because when we break through that soil and we're ready to grow into, my dad's a soybean and a corn farmer, when we grow into that soybean or that corn that we're intended to be, watch out, because we are just about to be the absolute best version that could ever have been imagined. And without each and every corn stalk or soybean that is in that row, without each and every single one of those individuals, just like there's each and every one of us, that field is not complete. And so that's where we all become together, creating our gifts and sharing those with everyone that's around us, just so that we can have that amazing, beautiful field as well that is so deep rooted in a solid soil or a solid foundation. So a couple little takeaway pieces like I had shared that I want you to think about for yourself is start thinking about that pride. Don't spend too much time, but we got to acknowledge it, because if we don't acknowledge it and then bless and release it, it is always going to be there. And then those 4 chambers, like we've talked about, they aren't going to be able to function 100% like they're supposed to. Okay, so I want you to think about that. And then that will help you develop into who that purpose is. And then I want you to take some time to recognize that you have control, because you're in the middle of that little devil and that little angel. And I want you to decide who you're going to feed the most. Who are you going to provide that nutrient environment to? Okay. And then take the time to actually do that. Now, there's going to be trials and tribulations along the way, right? That's that hardship and some of that challenge that I had talked to you about. So what are we going to do whenever that happens? We're going to lean into the hard. We're going to lean into one another. And then we're literally going to take that time to say, you know what? I have to tell you, I'm not going to act in fear. That is not who I'm going to be. I'm not going to be my pride. I am going to be my purpose. I'm going to pull out my positive affirmations. I'm going to pull out those statements that help me remember who I am. And I'm literally going to speak life into what I want to speak life into. And then you're going to continue to grow and develop and just continue and continue to grow into the best version of yourself. And you're going to share and share and share, and it's going to multiply and multiply, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. And so last but not least, after you have taken the time to actually do this piece of the puzzle, like we had shared about in just a bit, what I also would love for you to do as well is start thinking about what those I am statements are. So maybe, and you know what, start with a couple of different things. You know, maybe you're like, gosh, I don't know, I am a daughter. Awesome. Let's be that, and let's be the best version of that. I am a Beachbody coach. Awesome. Let's be that, and let's be the best version of that. And start again, going through that whole process again of those 4 chambers, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, to be the best daughter, the best Beachbody coach that you ever can be, knowing that your gifts are unique to you and no one else. So I would love, love, love to have you take some time to start writing some of those I am statements as well. And I'll share with you what I did personally, and then I'll leave you with this thought. There are times that opposition comes, right? And I think I've shared that on a call and previous times where I had a mentor that said to me, you know, I'd shared with her that I was getting better at recognizing some of those negative thoughts or those fear-based actions, but I kept having to remind myself sometimes 2 and 3 times a day. And I had said to her, I said, you know, I'm figuring this out, but I have to remind myself several times a day to, you know, not feed into that fear or feed into those negative thoughts. And I really just kind of feel bad about that. And she gave me such an amazing, amazing piece of advice. And if you've heard this before, I apologize, but I always think it's really good to have a reminder. She asked me, she said, you know, Feryl, do you shower every day? And I said, well, yeah, of course. And she said, okay, and you feel good about it? Yeah, I feel pretty good about it most of the time, right? She said, so like, let's say you have a really hard workout. Do you shower a second time that day? Yeah. She said, okay, cool. Then you go outside and you do some lawn work or what have you, and you get kind of dirty and just what you wasn't expected, you know, but hey, you got some stuff done and it is what it is. Do you shower again? Sometimes, you know, maybe 3 times a day. And I said, well, yeah, sure. And she said, do you feel bad about it? And I said, no, for goodness sakes, it's just a shower. She said, then why do you feel bad about showering your mind several times a day? So whenever I finally figured out that it's okay to have to take a shower in your mind several times a day as well, it suddenly just released. It was like one of those anchors that was holding me back. I was just able to release it, and I was able to start feeding into the purpose that I was looking for. So I would definitely encourage you to start just getting those statements out in front of you. I actually put them on my phone. They're on one of my daily reminders. And so they go off 3 times a day. This was a suggestion of Chris's. They go off 3 times a day, in the morning, at lunch, and then at night. And they're just 4 statements that are I am. And you know what? They've kind of evolved. They haven't been the same over these first couple of weeks that I've been taking this class with him. And I presume they'll continue to evolve. But it's just that nice little reminder that, oh yeah, this is who I am. This is what I'm working towards. And it's just those little tidbits along the way that kind of help some of those growth struggles, if you will, while you're developing into that person that you were intended to be. Because ladies, you have all the gifts. You have all the gifts for everything that you've ever wanted to be already inside of you. We just have to make sure that we are nurturing and we're caring for and creating that environment to live our purpose and be the best versions of ourselves. I am so excited to have the opportunity to share this with you. Thank you so much for listening. I would love to answer any questions that you might have, or maybe little tips or tricks that you have that work. I think that's the best thing about this, is that we've got this environment of amazing women that can really just help and grow one another. And as things go along, if this is something that you enjoy and you're interested in, you know, don't hesitate to let me know, or let Beth know, or let Mallory know, and I'd be happy to share what the remaining 4 weeks are going to be like. Who knows? My I am statements might be totally different. So yes, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or any thoughts or anything along the way would be great too.
Oh, it was so good. Thank you so much for sharing, Feryl. I kind of, as you were speaking, just put some of my thoughts over in the chat section. I specifically loved Well, I recapped the 3 kind of big takeaway points that you mentioned. I would love to do another call at the end of your 9 weeks just to kind of see or hear some additional things that maybe you've learned or how those statements have grown and changed. But one thing, kind of my 2 biggest takeaways, one was the correlation that was made between the 4 chambers of the heart and the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual parts of just our being in general, and how that's kind of correlated. Like that fits into every single part of my life. And I talk about oftentimes that I found Beachbody because I was on what I thought was a physical journey. Like I had the sort of that physical part of me is what I struggled with, and trying to figure out a lifestyle that was conducive to me learning how to love the physical part of myself. But then what I've gotten out of Beachbody programs is those other 3 pieces have grown so immensely, on top of course, getting physical results from our program. And so, but it's not something that I knew these programs or this coaching opportunity and our team and the tribe and the community and the challenge groups would give me. And so I really loved that. And then I also loved how you talked about how we have pride on one side and purpose on the other, and we are in the middle, and we have full control over kind of making the choice of which side we're going to feed into. And I've never really kind of thought about it that way. And I feel like that's so important whenever, for me specifically, like just kind of relating this to my own kind of personal journey, especially with coaching. I was thinking about kind of my business and goals whenever you were talking about that. And I feel like, and you and I have talked about this before, whenever we do set like a big goal that we're pushing for, or something in our business that maybe we start to question, am I going to hit it? Am I going to hit it on time? Am I going to hit it when I said I was going to hit it? Those kind of self-limiting beliefs tend to always creep in and start to like take over, the belief that I know I have in myself and in my ability to hit that specific business goal, or, whatever it is, whether it's rank advancement or success club or whatever the case may be. But just reminding myself that I am right here in the middle, and I have full control over allowing those self-limiting beliefs to take over, or choosing to believe in my purpose, and knowing that it's okay if I don't hit that goal by that date and that deadline, as long as I know that I'm living my purpose and I'm doing the things that I know are going to get me there at some point. So I really love that, because I know you and I have had a conversation about that before, for sure. And I also want to encourage everybody to do everything Feryl just talked about doing, as far as kind of walking through those steps and that process is concerned. And then I want to encourage everybody to either post or do a video in our team page and share some of those I am statements. I think that that will not only be powerful for each of us, and I'm going to sit down during my kind of personal development time in the morning, and I'm just going to do a live video in our team page to kind of share mine once I kind of walk through that process. But if you're not comfortable doing a video, then just share it in a post. Once you kind of, it doesn't have to be tomorrow, of course, but once you kind of get through the process that Feryl talked about, and you do get to those I am statements and those affirmations, set those reminders on your phone like Feryl does, whether it's, 1, 2, or 3 times a day, to remind yourself, and share it with our team so that we can help cheer you on along your Power of I Am journey, and just this life journey that we're on, because it's just also interconnected with our business, and with how we pour into others and help our challengers, and how we even just provide value and share on social media through, our stories and stuff. So this was amazing. I love it. I don't see any questions in the chat box, but I just want to thank you, Feryl, for sharing all of your insight with us. And I love the correlation between this whole process and the farmer. Like, I love that. Like, it's such a perfect kind of correlation and example as to how, like, each piece of the puzzle is so important.
I so appreciate the opportunity. And you know what? You can take the girl out of the farm, but you can't take the farm out of the girl. That's all I have to say.
Yep. Very cool. Awesome. Well, I will post this recording in our team page, and then I cannot wait to see or watch or hear or listen to all of your I am statements in our team page. So I hope you all have a great, amazing rest of your Monday night, and I will talk to you all soon. Thanks, Feryl. Bye, guys.
Thank you.